God bless you. It's great again to sit with you, to talk with you, to share with you the wonderful words of life. And especially when it comes to this particular book, the Song of Solomon. It's called again the Song of Songs for us also. But it's great we have read the entire chapter 4 in the previous session. And the main theme that is marriage is honorable. And with all of what's going on in our world today, in our society, amongst humanity, it would seem that marriage is under the attack. The very institution, the very of family is under the attack. Anything it would seem that God established as a blessing, anything that it was established as a blessing, then the enemy is going to attack. And so much so, even today in our time, family, marriage is under the attack. There are so many individuals who, as you would say, they're living together or lincing or shacking up. as many would talk very flippantly about. But marriage is about struggles, yes. I'm not trying to say that there won't be any struggles at all in a relationship or in any relationship, that is. And when I say any relationship, I'm not talking about the ungodly relationships now, because those are abominations. Right? They are abominations. But even in which God has established, why again is there strains, are there struggles, are there problems? It's because of sin, really. It's because of the disobedience of our foreparents, Adam and Eve. But God has given us strength. God has provided strength for all those who wish to seek. And let me say that even those who, at times, I wouldn't say that they have rejected God, but even those who have not confessed that Jesus Christ is Lord, when you look at their marriage relationships, at times it's far better and more of an example than what relationships Christians say that they have when it comes to marriage. But let's not go too much into that discussion. Many of you are married, I'm quite sure. Many of you are not. You're either seeking for a husband and or for a wife. Um, and there are counselors out there. You have your pastors, you have your bishops, your teachers, godly men I'm talking about. Godly men, godly women who are there to help you, to advise you, to counsel you. So I don't want to, and I'm not going to tread on anybody's toes where that is concerned. So you have very capable people around you that can help you, that can show you, that again can pray with you. Prayer is important. Prayer is important. It's not the end all of all things. No, it is not. But prayer is important. And with all of the advising that we can do, with all of the preaching, the teaching, and the counseling that we can do, prayer comes in the mix. Yes, our life should be a life of prayer anyway. It's not so much finding a place to kneel, prayer, because at times the non-verbal activities or the non-verbal actions that we do speak sometimes far more than what we say. Okay, this particular session here, we're going to be looking at very quickly at the beauty of the bride is praised by her husband. Again, let me say that this book is primarily speaking about Solomon now, and in the beginning from chapter 1, Solomon and the Shulamite, and the expressions of love and the actions of love that was given. As we go further, and as we have been further into the Song of Solomon, it's speaking much more now of leading up to the marriage, up to the marriage ceremony, and then the beginning of the marriage. I would want to say at this point, I'm sure, I don't know if you've read chapter 4 in its entirety. If you haven't, I would suggest that you do that. Read chapter 4 first, and then come back to me. If you wish, so at least you get an idea and a good idea of what it is that I'm saying. And then you can then judge, am I right? Or am I wrong? Or is there further discussion? I think that ought to be had. Yes. You've got to first bring something to the table. You've got your reference books. If you haven't got anything to refer to as far as this particular book is concerned, you can always visit the Amazon bookstore. You can visit the bookstore on your high street, in the malls, very good stores that you'd be able to go to and peruse through them, reading the front covers as well as the back covers and what's in the middle before you actually buy it. But I'm sure there's a lot of reference books in relation to the Song of Solomon. The beauty of the bride is praised by her husband. So as I was saying, this is primarily about Solomon and his bride, soon to be wife, and also queen, one to sit with him as he ruled Israel. But it's not only just about that. It is not just solely about that. As I have read it and thought about it and meditated on the little that I have done so far, it's speaking much about Christ and his church, or God and his people. Yes, he loves his people. And this is just, I believe, an expression of God's love, because ultimately, it's going to be such where God is going to bring his people to be where he is. They're going to reign. We're going to reign with him. What does a queen do? You know, what does the king do? Don't they rule, sit on their throne and rule kingdoms or rule their kingdom? So it is with us as the church and Christ, or us as God's people and God. We're going to reign with him. We're going to live with him. He loves us now, but we're really going to feel the full expression of his love when we actually are there with him. You think he's showering great grace and mercy now? Just wait till you get into his presence. We are really going to know what it is, or how it is that God loves and loved us, because he cares for us. So we can always look at the Song of Songs and say it's a beautiful love story. It's a beautiful love poem. When you read, and we're going to be reading from verses 1 through to 7. I'll read that from the Jerusalem Bible, if you don't mind. You can read from the King James Version, or the NIV, or the New King James Version, and or the Jewish text. You can always, take it from those versions that you have. I'm going to be reading from verse 1 to 7. Have it in mind, though, that yes, it's telling us a story. It can be very explicit, and sometimes, yes, there are times and there are places that we may feel embarrassed about saying certain things, or even bring certain things to our mind or to your mind, saying we don't want to bring any pictures into our minds or into our hearts, because for some of us, or for some of you, you may feel that you need to get baptized again. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know. I leave it up to you. If you're honest with yourself, Yes, when you read certain things and the picture that comes through, what they say in the scriptures here is what was um what is what they saw, is how they could express, and they knew exactly what it is or what it was, what that was being said. We couldn't use the language that Solomon used now, either for the man to the woman or from the woman to the man, because it would either seem strange, uh, or at times even that um, you don't respect the person or the persons or whatever that may. But remember this, that whatever word being used, whatever language it communicated, they were used to that. And it wasn't embarrassing at all for them. It was expressions of love, and they really took to heart. They accepted what the man said to the woman, and what he said that to of her man. So let's read from verse 1 to 7, and then I'm not an expert on this. Uh, I'm not an expert. I have read it already. I have looked at certain resources, references that we have. I may not fully understand, but hey, how are we going to understand? How are we going to begin to understand anything if we don't try to say something about what it is that's in front of us? We have to read it, get a little bit of understanding for ourselves. Yes, not wholly, but a little bit of it. Do whatever research that we have, and we get the reference books. We won't get all the reference books or read everything that is about this, or probably, and we must that there may be nobody at all to have written anything on this particular passage. But I'm sure there is anyway. But I'm just throwing that in the mix. Sometimes what God places into your heart and mind for a particular reference, for a particular passage, you maybe want to write something about it. There may be other eminent, quite powerful, other powerful researchers and theologians and doctors of theology that yes, the understanding that he has given you, and you could probably write a few books about this particular passage. Remember this: the beauty of the bride is praised by her husband. The beauty of my wife is praised by her husband, which is me. Or the beauty of your wife is by her husband, which is you. Let's look at it in that way first. Yes, we know that it's vice versa. The yeah. Let's just start from that. Okay. How beautiful, and this is the bridegroom now. This is the husband speaking of his wife, speaking of his bride. How beautiful you are, my love. How beautiful are your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a foal. If you said that to your wife, what would your wife do to you? Or what would your wife say of you? But listen, these words, how it's been communicated back then, it was quite different, a whole lot different. So if you're going to say that of it today, what would you say? How would you put over your words of love describing your wife? I'm sure you wouldn't use that her hair is like a flock of goats. That I'm quite sure. All right. So let's go on. Frisking down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of strong ewes as they come up from the washing. Each one has its twin, not one compared with another. Your lips are a scarlet thread, and your words enchanting. Your cheeks behind your veil are halves tower of David built as a fortress. I mean, all of that. Your neck is the Tower of David built as a fortress. Who would talk like that? Would you tell your wife that her neck is like a tower? She probably look at you and say, what are you talking about? But again, words, phrases, sentences, how Solomon is speaking to his bride would accept that because she knows exactly what he is saying to her, of her, and she would love him for it. She would love him, but we wouldn't. I'm sure your wife wouldn't. Your neck is the Tower of David, built as a fortress, hung around with 1,000 bucklers, and each the shield of a hero. Your two breasts are two fawns, twins of a gazelle that feed among the lilies. That again, your two breasts. Would you, how would you, how do you think your wife would feel what you express in her life? I mean, probably she'll show you out of the house or pot, the pot cover or the very pot that would be thrown after you. You have to be dodging a few things in the house. What is to say? Who is to say what would happen? But again, let me reinforce Solomon here that is described. They know that they are saying to each other, and they are and they of it. Right? Let's go on a little more. That twins of a gazelle that feed among the lilies. Before the dawn wind rises, before the shadows, I will go to the mountain of myrrh, to the hill of frankincense. Touch on every part of this as I'm doing. Now I'm going to miss a lot. I'm quite certain I'm not perfect. I read a little, but even the little that I've read doesn't say much about this. Really, probably I'm touching, but even I'm just touching on these things. I'm gonna go back to it in the next couple of minutes. But in pomegranates, at that time I don't know much about it. Today, in our day, probably you would be able to find a little bit more. But even the fruit, and I'm sure you've had pomegranates before, they're quite tasty to some extent. I don't have them all the time. But they even say that that's an aphrodisiac. Even back then, it was known or felt that there were aphrodisiacs. So there's a lot. This woman, if we were living during the time of Solomon and hearing the description, not seeing the woman, but hearing the description that is being used by the bride, that is what I'm trying to say here. She is absolutely stunning. She is a super model, one that probably would be able to walk, if I can use the term, the catwalks of modeling. She would be sought for. Different words in our day would be used to describe the same woman. Would be able to describe the same woman. But what word would you use, to describe the neck? What word would you use to describe the breasts? What word would you use even to use as a fruit? All up to you. It's all up to you. But remember this, at this point here between verses 1 and 7 of chapter 4 of the Song of Solomon, it is said, and it could even be felt, that they were now married. Solomon is now in the bedroom or is in the house. It's basically used house. Some people may feel a little ashamed or may feel a bit cute, if I can use that word. But here, they're now close is having a real good look at his woman, is having a real good look now at his bride, because his bride is before him. What is that now saying of Christ and the church of God and his people? There are we. We're not yet there. The marriage is about to happen. At what point, at what time, we don't know. We only know that the Lord is coming back for his people. The Lord is coming back for his church. So we're not actually, so to speak, in his presence, even though we are. It can be contradictory rather at times. But we're going to experience even this. And I could probably say that, from the time that Christ went back into glory, he's away from his bride, but he's very much in the presence of her. And as Solomon and as the Shulamite in the presence of love, and at times before the marriage, they met each other, they fell in love with each other, courtship and such. And so I believe that we could also, I'm just talking, I'm just sharing. You think about what I'm saying. Just think about it. Just have some thought. So let's just talk a little bit more, just a few seconds more, if you will allow me to. We've just read chapter 4. Current remarks or the current standards of some of the remarks do not seem romantic, but they are very romantic by the standards of that day. Okay, so scripture, this particular passage, this book is now taking us into following Solomon and into the bedroom. And he's the eyes, the beautiful eyes of his bride. What does he say? How beautiful you are, my love. How beautiful you are. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. If you said that to your wife, what would she say to you? She probably feel your cheeks or your forehead and say, are you having a temperature? I'm not saying that there aren't men out there that are not romantic, but probably my wife would say that of me in one sense. But again, what wording would we use? What would you use instead of saying, your eyes are behind your veil are as doves? What word would you put in place of dove? Just think about it. Words and phrases, sentences change from generation to generation, from era to era. And for Solomon to say that of his bride, to say that to his wife, then was very romantic. What is God saying of the eyes of his church or of his people in terms of his bride, his people? How does he view us? Does he view us like that? I believe he still views his people. I believe he is seeing his bride as as an end result. We are not perfect. We know that. He knows that we are not. He knows his people are not as yet perfect. However, he sees us as an end result. So what then? How then is he describing us? Is he using the same language as what we're reading here? Neck, as towers, breast, as used? I don't know. You'd have to go to the Lord about that. But certainly Solomon is 3 years and in the time in which he is living. And so beautiful eyes are visible through the fabric of her wedding veil. The description emphasizes the beauty, calmness, the innocence, the character that comes through the eyes. Sometimes when you look into people's eyes, you can sense the innocence or the guilty. That's why when people, judges or people who want to talk to individuals, they like to talk to them face to face. People are now texting, people are WhatsApping everybody, people are using Instagram, people are using TikTok. You don't see the person. Great sentences, great conversations are happening over these mediums. People are, it would seem, are afraid to sit down and eyeball each other. For what reason? And probably because sometimes, have you noticed, when you talk to individuals, when you share with individuals, when you look at them, their body language is something different to what they're saying, or the atmosphere in which is there is different to what is being said. People hide behind texting. People hide in their social media world. But in this instance here, Solomon is seeing. Solomon is expressing what he sees in the eyes of his beloved, and he's loving it. He is, when God is with us, when God looks at us, is he comfortable? Again, he sees the end result of his bride. We see how imperfect we are, and yes, we are certainly not perfect, but God sees us and he's looking into our eyes. What is he sensing? You say here again, Solomon giving her veil. Her hair tumbles from beneath the cap and cascades down her shoulders and back. The black goats region were considered a thing of gaze on the mountains. So probably that is why Solomon spoke in terms of we certainly can't. Or let me say, I can't. I don't have any goats. You have goats. You may have a few goats. You could have sheep. You could even have camels. I don't know. You use the things that you can identify and what's right, and also know what I'm talking about. But you're certainly not going to stand before the woman of your dream and say that her hair is black as the goats. I'm quite certain about that. But you're going to use something that is very much a part of our reality right now. And when you say that, that will move her because she knows what you're talking about. This, she doesn't. This, she won't. But Solomon's bride does. And she loves it. The beauty of the bride is praised by her husband. God is praising us. Now, not in terms of the goat, not in terms of the towels, the neck, not in terms of how the woman looks, right? Her body and the shape of her body. But then God sees particular beauty about us, and he dismisses how he's describing me or you or us together. I don't know how that is being done. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying, but there's a beauty that he beholds. Amen. There's a beauty that he beholds. He nestles his face in her soft tresses, that is the locks of her hair, and likens her beautiful hair to the peaceful, beautiful sight. When Solomon moved to her face, his bride smiles shyly at him. He compliments her beauty or her perfect, sparkling white teeth. What did it say in verse 2? Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes. Now, again, if you compared, if you compared the teeth of your wife to some animal, what would your wife say? How would your wife? Would your wife look at you quite strange? I don't know what you would say. But again, Solomon used terms that she knew and she could tell me with, and she probably loved him even more because of what she was being compared with. Now, again, when Christ looks at his bride, when God looks at his people and sees, I don't know if God is using words. I don't know what words God would use in terms of us today. He would use those words. Because how would we feel? You know. But yes, remember, it's not just about Solomon and his bride. It's about Christ and the church, God and his people. He loves us. He loves his people. And he can't wait, really, so that we will be there with him and he in our presence. Well, he's with us already. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not with us, but I want you to understand what I'm saying here in the sense. He's eternal. He's omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. We are not. So he's with us all the time. But when we are with him in a very physical sense, or in the case of reality, and we are with him and he's with us, we're really going to feel the intensity of his love. And we're going to hear him speaking. So the brightest, purest white he could imagine was that of sheep just shorn and washed. Notice as she smiled that her teeth were straight and perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so here Solomon is his wife. Again, Christ and the church, God and his people. God's people is, I want you to understand that God's people is going to be perfect. There's no woman bride. She was beautiful. Absolutely. She was stunning, striking. She was like a supermodel of our day. The new queen's modesty betrayed her. Verse 3 said, what does verse 3 say of this? Thy lips are like the scarlet, and thy temples are like a top with thy locks, thy like the tower of David. Pomegranates were considered an aphrodisiac. His description then moved from her mouth to her neck, likening it to a tower of David. Now, this tower, the real tower, this place was a stately military arsenal and a landmark in Israel. If you look at Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 25, you see reference to that. The mighty warriors would, in times of peace, hang shields upon its walls in a show of allegiance to the king. Solomon was displaying the stately elegance of his neck and the beautiful layered necklaces that adorned it. He was using everything that was of some majestic relevance in his kingdom to describe the elegance, beauty, the majestic mood way in which his bride was. She was beautiful. So to be described back then as a tower of David would be something of great acceptance, really. We're all the mighty warrior of David, the mighty men of David with their shields and their things of battle. When they hang them on the wall within that tower, it shows the might of the king. And it also would show the allegiance that the mighty men of the kingdom had in their king. And the king knew that he had mighty men with all of the emblem that each one of them had. He could show them off to those. There's another king that we call mighty man. You can compare also breasts to graceful young fawns grazing under the lilies. Their youthfulness and soft, smooth reminded him of the velvety coat of a fawn. Note that this is the first time in the song that the young man's description is limited to any part of the young woman's body below her head. It's first time in the Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, that the young man's description is directed to any part of the young woman's body below her head. So this here would indicate to some extent that this is the night of the wedding, when he has gone in unto her, not before. And I would say that strongly because God is involved, even with us as his church, his bride, his people. You know, he respects us. He respects us. We must respect him. Solomon respected the bride respected her beloved. And here the husband, Solomon, is praising her. God is praising us. God is adorning us with his righteousness. I believe we're now adorning us with his grace. I'm just going to stop here. You continue to think, meditate on this. We can always come back to this at some stage later. Not rushing through. I don't want to take too long on this particular passage, but you read it. Think about it. If you get other resource books, whatever it is that's out there, get it. Because it's fascinating to see how Solomon is describing his wife, is loving his wife, but at the same time, it's also depicting Christ and his church, or God and his people. Because how it is, I'm not saying it's fallen state. Solomon is human. Solomon is perfect. But Solomon was going to fail. Solomon was going to fail. But our bride, the bride of Christ, God who loves his people, is not going to fail, because his love, his care for his people is above finding or knowing. And he is, we are going to experience, and it's all about, this year is all about the love of God to his people. It's all about his expression of love for his people. If we don't see that, if all what you see in this book is just Solomon and his bride, which of course it's not just about that though. It's about God and his people. I probably shouldn't say Christ and the church because I'm not only talking about my church. Some may know, just like many other churches anyway, they just said, well, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere until you join our church. Well, we know that not to be true right now. But what we do know is that Jesus said, I will build my church. I will build my church. That's what Jesus said. So what we need to do is make sure that we're part of that church. Make sure that we are part of the body of Christ, because he will present it. His church will present to himself a glorious church, not having any spot or wrinkle or any such thing. So may God bless you. Love you. My heart's desire is that we grow in grace, grow in the knowledge of God also, grow in the knowledge of his word, and that we become better men, women, enabled servants of God, inspired to preach, to teach, but not only to preach and to teach, but to live his word. Yeah, so may God bless you, love you, and in our next coming session, we'll be looking at other areas in which chapter 4 of the book of the Song of Songs